a question is being asked here. Everybody listen. This is really interesting and it's funny also. Since you can get liberated easily by devotional service, isn't it possible that everyone will be liberated and the world will no longer exist? Like, if it's so easy to get liberated, and then everybody took to devotional service, then there's a fear, or at least a question, well, what if the world doesn't exist? And here's the answer. Jiva Goswami answers, there is no such danger, since it is very difficult for envious, duplicitous, sensuous persons to faithfully serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And there is no such people in the world. In other words, there's always people who are qualified to remain in the material world. And what are their qualifications? They're listed here. They're envious. And duplicitous means you're faking it. You know, you appear to be very devotional and honest and sincere, but actually you're not. Wow, dramatic effect. I should see, wow. Wow, even more dramatic. Comes equipped. So, sensuous, duplicitous, and envious. And there's no shortage of such people. So I have a funny story. Srila Prabhupada was invited onto a talk show, very big talk show. And the moderator, the host of the talk show, was famous for inviting guests and then cutting them down. You know, he'd invite a guest, then he'd like, what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? He'd invite a guest, and then he just cut him, you know, down, right? And so, welcome. And so, there's 2 chairs over here if you need a chair. So, it looks like the Brits have made it. This weather must be so hot for you. You're ready to go swimming, right? So, this is so funny. So they told Prabhupada, they said, Prabhupada, the host of this show, he's very sarcastic. And he always tries to make fun of his guests and put them down. So Prabhupada was warned. And so when he got on the show, they were talking, and the man posed a question. And a lot of people ask this question. What if the whole world becomes Krishna conscious, then nobody's going to work, nobody's going to do anything? Because that's their idea. When you become Krishna conscious, you don't work. Which, at that time in ISKCON was true, because everyone was brahmachari. So the man said, so what's going to happen if everyone becomes Krishna conscious? Who's going to work? Who's going to do anything? And Prabhupada said, don't worry. There'll always be plenty of fools like you who will never become Krishna conscious. Who will never take up Krishna conscious. So Prabhupada got the first punch before he punched. And then on a morning walk, I guess they must have been talking about celibacy and about the value of celibacy or the value of brahmachari. Brahmachari. And so the devotee said, but if everyone becomes a brahmachari, then eventually there'll be nobody in the world. And Prabhupada said, why do you want to bring any kids into this nasty world? He said, you don't need anybody in this world. It's not this world is not necessary. It's only necessary for people who want to be rebellious. So, yeah. It was a philosophical discussion. Maybe not practical, but philosophical. So we're talking about duplicity here. Okay, this is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Mahaprabhu was traveling and they were looking for a servant. And Mahaprabhu had lost one servant. He had a servant that traveled with him, and Mahaprabhu they were separated for a short time. I don't remember why. And then some gypsies came and attracted his servant away, and Mahaprabhu had to come and save him. So Mahaprabhu was reluctant to have another servant. And so he said, you have to have a servant who's simple and honest and so forth. So this is the verse where Sri Damodar is presenting the next servant. Sri Damodar said, here is Balabhadra Bhattacharya, who has great love for you. He is an honest, learned scholar, and he is advanced in spiritual consciousness. And then Prabhupada describes his qualities, and one of them being non-duplicitous. Sri Chaitanya wanted a new man, not a person like Kala Krishnadas, who would fall for women. Swarup Damodar therefore immediately pointed out a new Brahmin named Balabhadra Bhattacharya. Swarup Damodar had studied this person very thoroughly and had seen that he had great love for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Not only did he love the Lord, but he was also learned and honest. So, honest, the way Prabhupada uses honest, it's also a synonym for integrity. It's a synonym for not being duplicitous. You know that saying? WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. That's what it stands for. So, if you're buying a product, you fool around with it and, this is what it is. What you see is what you get. What you see is what you get means quality. It's not like going to break apart. Take it, throw it, see? It didn't break. What you see is what you get. But with people, what you see is not always what you get. Sometimes you see unity and so-called honesty and devotion, and you get something else. And therefore, there's a saying in Bengali, it's an interesting saying. Too much devotion is a sign of a thief. Like someone's too nice. Prabhu, can I help you? Can I carry this? Can I give you a donation? Watch out. They want to get to know you so they can rob you. Maybe, not always, but it's possible. Like if it's over the top too much, it could be. So what you see is devotion and humility, but what you may not get it. So Sri Damodar is saying, Balabhadra, what you see is what you get. You see him pure, and he is pure. So, he was not duplicitous, and he was advanced in Krishna consciousness. Yes. According to a Bengali proverb, Ati bhakti chorera lokshan. Too much devotion is a symptom of a thief. A person who assumes himself to be a great devotee, but mentally is thinking of something else, is duplicitous. One who is not duplicitous is called a sadhu. So, we've been talking about this at the Vaishnava Academy. That sometimes a devotee will have a need to pretend that he's more advanced than he actually is to get some respect or honor or acceptance, or just because he feels embarrassed not to be such a great devotee. So he'll do some drama, some acting, and he'll act like a devotee so that people will appreciate him. So, if you study the definition of humility, you will find that humility is exactly the opposite of that. Now, if you look at some of the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's totally revealing his, what we call now, shadow, the modern term, your shadow, your dark side. He's totally revealing that in a song to the world. This is what I'm like. I'm a cheater, I'm a liar, I'm duplicitous. I'm happy when people suffer. I'm unhappy when people are happy. I have no devotion. I'm like, it's just not trying to demonstrate. So that's what humility means. And so pretension is the opposite of humility. Because pretension is to pretend something is real that's not real. Like, I'm very advanced, but that's not real. I'm pretending. Right? So, now here it gets interesting. Because Prabhupada said, if you think you're an advanced devotee, you're in a dangerous situation. To think like that is dangerous. Isn't that interesting? And to think I'm not advanced, to think I have many bad qualities, that's a sign that you're actually doing well in Krishna consciousness. Although materially that's a sign you have low self-esteem. But spiritually, it's a sign that you're doing well, that you recognize your faults. So humility means to honestly assess where you're at. And duplicity means to deny the reality of where you're at and to pretend either your problems don't exist or that you're more Krishna conscious than you really are. Makes you feel good, right? We don't feel good thinking we're not very Krishna conscious, right? If you look at all your faults, it could be discouraging if you don't know how to take it, right? Yes? Have you ever done that? Look in the mirror and say, you are such a rascal. You are the scum of the earth. You have no good qualities. Now, who would do that? It would be depressing. But humility means to acknowledge things as they actually are. And pride means to pretend they're not as bad as they are. They're a lot better than they are. That's what it means. So then we come with this word self-deceit or self-deception. Self-deception means to pretend that a problem that exists doesn't exist. Why would I pretend? Because I have an image. And if that problem doesn't align with my image, I can't admit it. Have you ever had that experience? Like, you're proud of being a certain way and someone tells you you're the exact opposite? And how does that make you feel? That person must be wrong. Right? He couldn't possibly be wrong. Or she couldn't possibly be right, because I'm never like that. Then we have this other problem where we have a self-image, but our actions are totally out of alignment from that self-image, and we don't even notice it. We can't notice it. We don't want to notice it. We're afraid to notice it. It's depressing to notice. So we notice our actions, not as our actions are, but according to how we think of ourselves. And then we label those actions as good or great or whatever, if that's how we think. Or the opposite. If you have low self-esteem, you'll act well and you'll label it bad. If you're arrogant, you'll act poorly and you'll label it good. Both are deceptive. Isn't that interesting? So humility means you don't think of yourself better than you are, and you don't think of yourself worse than you are. You just think of the low self-esteem is you think of yourself worse. Arrogance is you think of yourself better. Humility means just acknowledge the reality of who you are, not better, not worse. Don't try to pretend you're better or worse, because low self-esteem, because it's the opposite, it's a little pretentious also. Like I'm pretending to be worse than I am. I mean, maybe you think you're worse, but it's a bit pretentious because reality says you're not that bad. I know people with low self-esteem, I counsel them, and I can tell you, some people with low self-esteem are amazingly smart, talented, and beautiful, and they think they're dumb, ugly, and not talented. And when they tell me that, I was like, I can't believe they said that, because it's not how they are. So low self-esteem, it's also a deception. It's just on the low side. And arrogance is a deception on the high side. So humility means you don't think you're better or worse, you just acknowledge the reality and you're okay with it. That's the big challenge in modern society. Because modern society is telling us, if you have faults, you shouldn't be okay with them. Isn't it? Because that's not good, or your parents told you that. And to develop humility, we have to be okay with what we discover, otherwise we'll be afraid to discover it. If we're not okay with it, then we're going to suppress it. No, it's not true. And if anyone ever gives you feedback and you defend yourself, guess what's happening? The truth is hurting. The truth hurts, right? And you don't want to hear it, but it hurts, and so you defend. That's why people defend. Did you know that? Why people defend themselves? Because something was said that goes against their image, and they can't tolerate hearing it. And so to advance in spiritual life, we have to be willing, humble enough, honest enough, and not hate ourselves so much that we can't hear it, that we have to falsely cling on to some idea that may not be true. That's what humility is. And so when Prabhupada says he's not duplicitous, it means he's just real. He's not pretending. Not pretending to be more Krishna conscious than he is. And he's honest about where he's at. And not depressed about where he's at, but excited to be a devotee. Okay, look at this. I'm going to make you happy about feeling... I'm going to make you happy. The more faults you have, the happier I'm going to make you. Okay, here I go. We are in Mahaprabhu's movement, right? We don't deserve to be in his movement, but he decided to give mercy, right? So the more fallen you are, that means the more fortunate you are. The more disqualified you are. So the more faults you find in yourself, you can think, wow, I'm like a student who failed every class and I just got admitted to Harvard or Oxford. That's what it is. So rather than be depressed, you can be happy. Wow, it's amazing. Someone like me with so many faults, and Mahaprabhu's letting me in his movement, and I can chant. And also, it also proves his glory, that he's so glorious that he can uplift a person like myself. So our fallen nature, it glorifies Mahaprabhu also. Look at me. I was just, as Prabhupada said, loitering on the street. Loitering means wasting our lives. Not loitering on the street, loitering in the material world. We were loitering in the material world, life after life, wasting time. And we were picked up by mercy. And that glorifies Mahaprabhu and it glorifies Prabhupada. So the more fallen you are, in a sense, the more glorious it is that you're devotee. So instead of lamenting, I have so many faults, we should be thankful that in spite of my faults, Mahaprabhu is engaging me and I can do devotional service and I can come to Mayapur and I can chant Hare Krishna and I can dance in the kirtan and I can take prasadam and I can have the Sangha of devotees and I have the Bhagavatam. Wow! That's amazing. And so, the more fallen we are, the more we could appreciate it, right? Because it means the less deserving of it we are. Does that make sense? Ah. Okay. Chaitanya Bhagavan. Okay, well, let me say something else. The main qualification for being Krishna conscious is sincerity, which anybody could have despite all disqualifications. It's like you don't need to be qualified to be sincere. As Prabhupada was asked, how do you become sincere? And who knows what Prabhupada said? Just be sincere. So how did Prabhupada define sincerity? If we need sincerity, that's the main qualification. How did he define it? He defined it as serving Krishna without motive, purely for Krishna's pleasure. That's what it means. Now, any of us can do that. At any stage we are in Krishna consciousness, we can do that, right? We can become aware of our motives and then serve Krishna to please him. Even though I may have so many material desires, but still I can control the reasons which I serve Krishna. Right? I can control those motives, the motive to please Krishna. I can do that. And that is a definition of pure devotional service, according to Rupa Goswami. That means anybody at any stage can engage in pure devotional service. Now here's the problem. How many of you are aware of your motives? Well, maybe I should rephrase it. How many of you would be willing to admit your motives are not always pure? Only 3. We're not doing great. 4. Do I hear 5? 5, 6. Going on 8, 9, 10. Do I hear 15? If we want to be sincere and engage purely, we have to be aware of our motives, why we're doing something. Am I doing it to impress other devotees? Am I doing it to make myself look good in the eyes of my spiritual master, although when I go home, I watch movies? Am I trying to get something else out of it? We have to be aware of our motives. And sometimes it's really difficult to admit to ourselves that my motives may not be pure. You agree? That's pretty hard, isn't it? But we need to be in touch with our motives, because pure devotional service must be motivated solely to please Krishna. Right, so I've given this example before, I'll give it again. We're sitting in a room here, so many devotees are visiting, some of you know me, some of you don't. And I could be thinking, wow, what an opportunity I have to impress you. What a great devotee I am, or a great speaker I am. And if you come tonight in the temple, we're going to do kirtan, and then I can impress you how great a kirtani I am, right? Possible, right? That could be my motive. Could be. I mean, there's an opportunity. But as a conditioned soul, until we're pure, we have a natural tendency to want to try to impress people that we're a little serious or sincere. I have some bhakti, I have some knowledge. It's just our conditioned nature. But what should I be thinking? I should be thinking, I'm coming here solely with one purpose, and that is to help you become more Krishna conscious. That's all I should be thinking, nothing else. Now we know from experience that most of us are pretty sincere, and our motivations are sincere, but these other things kind of, they're around, how about me? Hey, what about me? You could get some bonus points, Not only help them, but get your picture on their camera or something. And after class, I just want to let you know we're taking photos, so you can have a photo with me. So we have to be honest about these things. That even though our motives are pure, we may be surrounded by impure motives, and that's part of what it means to develop pure devotional service. To be willing to admit why we're doing something, because ultimately we're supposed to do it to please Krishna, right? And that's sincerity, and that is the main qualification. above knowledge, above ability, above anything, main qualification is sincerity. And how can we say that? And why does Prabhupada say that? Because could you have become a devotee if you weren't sincere? What would have happened if you weren't sincere? You would have come to ISKCON, you would have said, what's in it for me? You would have sat in a class, you would have heard, it's all about pure bhakti, don't be a pretender, and then you walk out and say, I can't get what I want here. I want some position, I want some control, I want some money, I want some prestige. It's too pure, I can't get it. So we must have been sincere. Yes? We must have wanted Krishna to sufficiently that we would make certain sacrifices. So that's why Prabhupada said sincerity is the basis. And so as you cultivate that sincerity, you continue in your bhakti. Sincerity brought you to Krishna consciousness. Don't you think it's going to keep you? If sincerity brought you and you lose your sincerity, what does that mean? What's going to happen? It's going to bring you out of Krishna consciousness. The thing that brought you is going to keep you. And if you lose it, you're going to lose Krishna consciousness. Does that make sense? What got you here is going to keep you here. Think to the time when you first were becoming Krishna conscious. What were you thinking? Probably thinking, wow, this is amazing. I've been looking for this, right? Finally, I found it. And you were excited, and you just wanted to serve. Tell me, Prabhu, what can I do? Isn't it? That's sincerity. That's what got us in the door. And if we lose that, it'll get us out of the door. Right? Wow. It's from the Chaitanya Bhagavad. When the inclination for serving the Supreme Lord is awakened in the hearts of pure devotees, they think that the four goals of human life, religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation, are simply cheating, duplicitous, or deceitful. So it's the same point here. If I want to get something from Krishna in exchange for my service, then it's considered cheating, duplicitous, or deceitful. I haven't read these yet, so I have to go through them to see which ones to read. Okay, let's from the 4th canto, 21st verse. Purport, text 23. The question may be raised that since the Lord is supposed to be worshipped by great demigods like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and others, how can an ordinary human being on this planet serve him? Good question, right? We're not even ordinary human beings. According to Bhishmadev, we're not even human beings. Because there are 9 qualifications for human beings. And most of us don't have all 9. So, sometimes a devotee might call you a Shudra. Well, that's a compliment, because Shudra is a human being. You can read it in Bhagavatam, the 9 qualifications of a human being. To be forgiving, not to get angry. Who knows the other ones? I forget. Anyway, they're interesting. Pritha Maharaj, by use of the word yatadhikara, according to one's ability, this answers the question. He uses this word. If one sincerely executes his duty, That will be sufficient. One does not need to become like Brahma, Lord Shiva, Indra, Lord Chaitanya, Ramanujacharya, whose capabilities are certainly far above ours. Even a Shudra, who is in the lowest stage of life, according to the material qualities, can achieve the same success. Anyone can become successful in devotional service, provided he displays no duplicity. It is explained here that one must be very frank and open-minded. Amayinaha. To be situated in a lower status of life is not a disqualification for success in devotional service. The only qualification is that whether one is a Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Sudra, he must be open, frank, and free from reservations. Frank means another word for honest. Frank means not hiding anything. Then, by performing his particular occupational duty under the guidance of a proper spiritual master, he can achieve the highest success in life. As confirmed by the Lord himself, Striyo Vaishyas Tata Shudras. It does not matter what one is, a Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, or man. If one engages himself seriously in devotional service, working with body, mind, and intelligence, he's sure to be successful in going back home, back to Godhead. The Lord's lotus feet are described here as Kama Dukangri, because they have all power to fulfill the desires of everyone. A devotee is happy even in this life, because although in material existence we have many needs, all his material needs are satisfied. And when he at last quits his body, he goes back home, back to Godhead without a doubt. So here's an interesting thought. We could go back to Godhead in this life. At the end of this life, we could go back to Godhead. If we give up duplicity and we only try to please Krishna. That's it. We can do that. And then some devotees say, Prabhu, that's so difficult. Then I say, did you hear what I just said? You can go back to Godhead in this lifetime, and this is all you have to do. Just be sincere, don't be duplicitous, serve to please Krishna. In this life, you can go back home, back to Godhead. So, okay, let me give an example. If I said, would you like to buy my computer? You say, how much is it? And I say, 1 lakh. And you say, whoa, boo. That's expensive. This computer can do yoga. And it's got a touch screen. And it's made of metal, not plastic. And it's 3 years old, and it still works. It's the only computer I ever had, aside from a Mac, that worked after 3 years. And you say, oh, Prabhu, thanks for the offer, but no thanks. Then I said, I have a brand new Mercedes-Benz 750 series. It was like a, I don't know, $100,000 car. And then I say, Prabhu, would you like my car? You say, how much? I say, $1,400. You get $1,400 immediately. You give it, right? You're selling me a $75,000 car for $1,400? Of course. Give it to me, right? You're running to the ATM, there's big, devotees are fighting one another. But $1,400 for this? When I go back to my country, I could get an okay computer for half that price. So it's the same thing. You say, devotional service, you have to do this, you should do this, you should do this, and then, Prabhu, can you make it cheaper? That's hard. I say, hello, Prabhu, one life, back to Godhead. Do you understand what you're getting? That's not expensive. Why are you complaining? That's a really good price. So when you put it in perspective, and as Prabhupada put this in perspective, what did Prabhupada tell us? Satya Yuga, they meditated for 100,000 years. You know, Treta Yuga, this, Dwapara Yuga, that, 10,000 years, 1,000 years, and now Kali Yuga, sacrifice, 10,000 years of sacrifice, and then Dwapara Yuga, 1,000 years of deity worship, and in Kali Yuga, we don't even live 100 years, 70, 80 years, just chanting, dancing, and feasting. Oh, Prabhu, that's too hard. Why? It means I don't like getting up early. You know, so hard to control my senses. Prabhu, you're getting to go back to Godhead in this lifetime. Do you understand that? Yeah, I know. But no, so we have to remember what we're paying for. And then when you realize what you're paying for, you realize that is really a good deal, don't you think? It's not so hard. It's a good deal. So, I just caught this phrase here that Prabhupada said. I find it interesting. It seems simple, but it's interesting. A devotee is happy even in this life because although in material existence we have many needs, all his needs are satisfied. And when he last quits his body, he goes home back to Godhead without a doubt. So, if you become Krishna conscious, Krishna takes care of you, and you go home back to Godhead. And Prabhupada's saying, that's why you're happy. And devotee says, oh, Prabhu, blah, 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 blah. All the reasons I'm not happy. Doesn't make sense, does it? Process, Krishna will take care of you. Go back to Godhead in this lifetime. That's the way Prabhupada wanted us to think. Yes? I'm going to read something. Hold on. Oh, this is a beautiful verse. This is from the Bhagavatam. We're talking about self-deception. So you might say, well, where's self-deception described in the Bhagavatam? No, it's right here. Brahma first created the nescient engagements, like self-deception, the sense of death, anger after frustration, the sense of false ownership, and the illusory bodily conception and forgetfulness of one's real identity. Purport. Before the factual creation of living entities in different varieties of species, the conditions under which a living being in the material world has to live were created by Brahma. Unless a living entity forgets his real identity, it is impossible for him to live in the material conditions of life. So, this was the ultimate self-deception that Brahma created. And what was the ultimate self-deception? That you think you're the body. And why did Brahma have to create that self-deception? It's very simple. The living entity wants to enjoy, so Krishna wants to fulfill their desire, so he has to create conditions so that living entity can enjoy. Now, look at it this way. You're coming down into the material world. You take birth, and you see little kids. They're so excited, aren't they? They're looking at everything, playing with everything. It's like, life is exciting, life is amazing. So we come into the material world like little kids. And we're looking to the future and what we're going to achieve. And so many things we're going to do. So many things we're going to get in our life. We're just looking for it, right? So, we've come to live that life. We've come here to enjoy that way. So Krishna doesn't want to rain on our parade, so to speak. He wants to help us. So how does he help us? He creates illusions so that things which are obvious we don't see or we deny. Okay, just like a little child's running around having a good time. You don't go up to the child and say, you know, you could die at any moment. So if I were you, I wouldn't run around and have a good time. I would just get real about life. And you know, you don't know this, but you know, your parents could get bitten by a snake tomorrow and you'd be an orphan. And, you know, and there are some kids out there that they barely get one meal a day, and that could happen to you. You wouldn't tell a kid that, would you? Because if you did, that would obviously ruin everything, right? There's advertising. Ads are everywhere. Wherever you look, there's an ad. Right? See, there's an ad right on your sweatshirt. And you can't avoid it. It's all your fault. So, we want to come into the world to enjoy. But if we come into the world and we see the reality, we'll look at it and we'll go, oh my God, this is horrible. I can't enjoy here. There's just birth, old age, disease, and death. The body is just a lump of flesh covering a skeleton. So Brahma creates self-deception. I am the body. I am the enjoyer. I'm not going to die. We just forget about it. We go and, you know, the denial of death is by far the most amazing reality. I don't know if it's a reality, but the most amazing phenomenon that goes on in this world, right? And that's why Yudhishthira said everybody thinks they're not going to die. That illusion, self-deception, was created by Brahma, because, you know, it's like you meet a beautiful girl and you fall in love, and you talk about raising a family and this and that, and then you say, actually, we could die at any moment, so let's just call it off. Right? That wouldn't make a good Bollywood movie. But, so we can't think that way. Because if we think that way, unless we're brahmachari or sannyasi, we'll go crazy. We couldn't function. You know, like, why aren't you going to work today? Because I could die today. Why should I go to work? You couldn't function that way. Right? So Brahma creates self-deception. So we think we're the body. And when you think you're the body, then you can enjoy the body, because if you think you're not the body, you can't enjoy it. Right? So that's why when someone becomes a devotee, they say this famous mantra, ever since I became a devotee, I can't enjoy anymore because I know too much. And I tried to bloop and I went out there and it didn't work because I know too much. Isn't it? Because that self-deception was removed by knowledge. So now because you know, you can't enjoy it anymore because you need a certain level of illusion to enjoy it. Right? So self-deception is the name of the game in the material world. You can't function well without this being deceived. And so then we become devotees, and for lifetimes we've been deceived. So it becomes a little challenging to be honest, to be real. Right? We were talking the other day about suffering. How sometimes it's so difficult to deal with suffering. But everywhere in Prabhupada's books, he talks about it. So you think we'd be ready for it. But when it finally happens, we're hardly ever ready for it, isn't it? Why? Self-deception. Yeah, I know the world's suffering, but it's not going to happen to me. Something like that. Or I don't have a lot of experience of it. So when it happens, it's like, what a shock. I never expected this. Right? You never expected it? Practically every other page in Prabhupada's books, he's talking about it. That's denial. That's self-deceit. So then the suffering comes, the misery, the shock, something happens. and we're not prepared for it. There's this morning walk, such a funny morning walk. I think I must have told this yesterday, maybe. Anyway, it's here in Mayapur, 1975. So Prabhupada would go on a walk and he'd go through it's just rice paddy here. He'd go through the rice paddy. Then he'd come back and he'd go up the stairs to the Lotus building to go to his room. And then whoever was on the morning walk, they would stay. And then all the devotees would come and they would tell everybody, whoever, not all the devotees, but whoever wanted. There'd always be like 100, 200 devotees around. What did Prabhupada say? And so they would tell you. And that morning, Prabhupada said there would be World War III. And of course, World War III means atomic weapons. So it's quite an exciting morning. And if you listen to that morning walk, a very funny conversation, because one of the GBC was asking Prabhupada practical questions. Well, if there's going to be World War III, should we move the deities to here and move the devotees out of the city? And trying to make all kinds of strategy. So, we would live through it. Prabhupada said, he said to this devotee, he said, so, you think you're not going to die? He said, no, you die now or you die in 20 years. What's the difference? You're going to die. It's just like he could see the devotee was so concerned that there would be a disaster and then he would die. I mean, it sounded like he was concerned that we would all die, but I guess Prabhupada saw that he was concerned that he would die. And then Prabhupada just said, so, you're thinking you're not going to die? So basically he was saying, so what's the difference? You die today, you die 10 years, 20, 30 years, still. How many of you think in 30 years you're going to be ready to die? Not ready now, but in 30 years I'll be ready. Maybe not. Yeah, it's easier if you're older because it's expected. But not necessarily. And so isn't that interesting? Like what, every third page, you're not the body, you're going to die. And then self-deception comes in. You can't enjoy the world and think like that, right? And then sometimes devotees say, some devotees are so negative, they're always saying everything is bad. You ever meet those kinds of devotees? It's all bad. Birth, death, old age, and disease. Body's just a bag of stool. Yes? You ever met them? They usually wear saffron, those guys. Because they don't want to get married, so they want to see the reality. They'll go up to Grihasthas, tell me how bad it is, I want to hear. Because I don't want to get married. Tell me all the gory details. So they want to hear how bad it is. Because they want to renounce. So when you want to renounce, it's very easy to face the reality. Because it helps you renounce. You don't want to renounce, you want to dream that it's better than it is. So, this is how Maya works. You see something, you think, oh, that looks nice, I'd like to enjoy it, and then the movie starts in your head of what it's going to look like, right? Or the painting, so you have this whole scene. Right? It's going to be like this, it's going to be like this, it's going to be like this. Raise your hand if that movie in your head ever happened the way you thought it. We got 100% agreement. It always looks better than it is, right? That's the self-deception. When you're more realistic, then you look at it realistically. You go, yeah, okay, I'm thinking I can enjoy this, but realistically, it's going to be like this and that. That's as you advance in Krishna consciousness. You understand the real enjoyment is in Krishna, not in these other things. And so you tend to see it more realistically. You don't have to be negative. It's just seeing realistically is what you do because it helps you. And every time devotees come to Mayapur, Vrindavan, they always say, it's amazing here. It's so amazing. I can't believe it. It's so amazing. It's just incredible. Isn't it? What I was experiencing, I never experienced anything like that. It's always better. Spiritual is always better than you think. Material is always worse than evil. So that's the self-deception. So Brahma only created that self-deception for materialistic people because they need that, because you can't enjoy if you actually see what it's like. Right? The man falls in love with a beautiful girl. If he had the vision to see her grow old to the age of 85, it wouldn't work. So you'd have a harder time. And if you saw the future, unfolding and all the problems that might be entailed in the choices you're making, it would be hard to live, wouldn't it? So Brahma creates that so we can enjoy. But when you no longer want to enjoy on that level, then the illusion is removed. And so part of that enjoyment is pretending how great you are. That goes along with it. So that when you want to remove the illusion, you want to become Krishna conscious, it's much easier to be humble because it's part of the package. That's what you need. Does that make sense? Yes? No? Maybe? You want to think about it tonight? So, I think I'll stop for now and see if you have any questions, because I have to leave about 7 o'clock. Yes?
I'm wondering about leaving now or leaving later.
She's not talking about leaving the room, leaving her body. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Sometimes I'm thinking, maybe I'm not ready to go back to Godhead. How do I know when we are ready? Otherwise, Krishna is saying, not you, you have to go back.
Well, this is a beautiful story of a devotee named Jai Gopal, and I believe Jai Gopal died in a car accident in late 1969 or 1970. And Prabhupada said, Jai Gopal went back to Godhead, and I don't think he'd been a devotee more than 6 months. And then Prabhupada said, he was not supposed to go back to Godhead. And I forget what Prabhupada said after that, but Krishna showed mercy, or I asked Krishna, or something, we could understand. It makes sense that Prabhupada intervened. He was not supposed to go. So, that's our faith. And Prabhupada taught us like that. So, give your life to Krishna, Krishna will take care of you. You don't have to worry about it. Like, how well can you take care of yourself? How Krishna conscious can you be? There's some limitation, but if Krishna wants to open the back door, then he opens it. You're in. And once you walk through that back door, everything is good. You're purified. That's our faith. And ultimately, a devotee will think, well, it doesn't matter. I just want to serve Prabhupada. So wherever he wants to take me, I'm ready to go to serve. I read the story. I don't know. I don't know if any of you heard this, who could validate this, but one devotee said that Prabhupada said, in my next life, I want to go to the hellish planets and preach. You'll say, yeah, I heard that before. I don't remember where. Yeah, you heard it from me, probably. But I don't. Has any of you have heard that before? Yes. Yes? Not from me? No. Anyway, it's not beyond belief. And so, our thinking is, I want to serve Prabhupada, I want to serve his mission, so if he wants me to go back to Godhead or he wants me to serve somewhere else, he's going to the hellish planet, let's go. My only desire is that I am born a hippie in the Lower East Side of New York between 1945 and 1950, so I can meet Prabhupada. So that's our desire. So that way, we're not worried about, am I ready to die or not? I just, serve here, serve there. Right? That's it. No anxiety. It's just about service. So if the body runs out, I can't use this body, then get another one. Trade in the old one, get a new one. Continue my service. What's the problem? It's Krishna's way of detaching us, because when the body stops working, why would you want to stay in it? But we're so attached to the body. When it works well, we can enjoy it, and we don't want to leave it. Right? But when it breaks down, we naturally become detached. Even non-devotees become detached when their body breaks down. You agree? Yeah, so you have a little pain, a little soreness when you get older, or you slow down a little bit. And Krishna's saying, just see, body's not so great anymore. And then we become detached. You know that joke about the man who made a deal with Krishna to give him a warning before he's going to die, you know? Warning. So he was upset. He went back to Godhead, he saw Krishna, and he said, you said you're going to give me warning, but you didn't give me any warning. Krishna said, I give you all kinds of warnings. Gray hair, wrinkles, arthritis, diabetes. I gave you all the warnings, you were dying. You just ignored them. I have a disciple. Her body is falling apart. And I always tell her, you should, do this natural, clear this, that, and no, I just want to die. I don't like this world, I want to stay in this world. All right, so that's okay if you feel that way. Just let your body fall apart. Jayananda, he had leukemia. So he was trying to cure it. And he got tired of trying to cure it. It wasn't really working. And he wrote Prabhupada, and he said, Prabhupada, I feel like I'm wasting all my time and energy trying to cure my body, and my body's just getting sicker and sicker, and it's costing money and this and that. And I'd rather just stop the cure and die. And Prabhupada said, yes, that is the proper way to think. He agreed with that. He let him do that. Of course, he was, if he stopped fighting, he would definitely die, because he had leukemia. But because he was putting so much energy into it, and he wasn't getting better, so much money as well, so much time, Prabhupada agreed, why fight it? And especially for him, he was a pure devotee. So Prabhupada knew he would have a glorious death. So I think all of us are attached to our body, and it's a blessing if there's something that will detach us. And at some point, the sign may be that, well, this body, I can't really do much. So it may be time to serve Krishna in a new body. Maybe you'll take birth in Radhakund. Your next one.
As a pig.
That's a lali, a gopi. Indradumna Swami was in a village. They were doing their parikrama in Vrindavan. He was in a village somewhere, like way out, remote village. And there's some little girls there, like 8, 10, or whatever, 12. He was talking to them, and he was joking with them. Say, you want to come with us? Go to New York, live in a big city, enjoy it. It's like, no. We don't want any of that. We just want to stay here with our Radhe Shyam. This is our life and so. If I have to leave this body and take a body like that, well, that's a lot better, isn't it? That could happen. I was walking down the street earlier today. I was chanting my japa, and this guy sees me and he starts chanting, some Bengali melody, just walking, just chanting. I'm just like, not even thinking. So, take birth in the Dham, that's what you do. So we should think, okay, I dedicated my life to serving Prabhupada, so I don't have to worry about anything. This life, next life, it's all already figured out by Krishna. He's going to do whatever best. However long I live, wherever I live, how long I live, all that. It's all perfect. You just serve Krishna, you don't worry about it. That's how we should think. You do your best to do your service, and then whatever comes, comes. I mean, we've seen this with Prabhupada's disciples, taking away different disciples, and we were thinking, why is he taking them away? They were like 65, 70, doing tremendous service. It didn't make any sense. And then the same thing when Prabhupada left. We were thinking, why is Krishna taking them away? We're not ready. It doesn't make sense. But we had to accept there's a plan there. And maybe that plan is it's time for Prabhupada to go on to his next engagement. It's time to call some of his leading disciples to join him. We don't know. But what we do know is that we dedicate ourselves to his mission, and we don't have to worry. Whatever happens that's... I mean, I've done, you could call crazy things in Prabhupada's service, and why did I do them? Because I had faith. This is what Prabhupada wanted, so I did it. Like going off into the middle of a Canadian winter. I mean, Canadian winters are cold. With no money. In a van with some books and no money. That's kind of crazy, isn't it? And we were leaving in the evening. That means we didn't have any money for well, we had a full tank of gas, petrol, and that's it. Just enough money to get to the next city. And when we got to the next city, nothing. We had no place to stay, nothing to eat. Why do we do that? Well, number one, we were young. Number two, we were crazy. But number three, we knew this is the Sankirtan movement, and Krishna will take care of his devotees. And they took care of us. We found a hostel, they invited us in, they fed us. We had a place to stay. We met some drunk on the street at 8 o'clock at night. There was no one on the street but a drunk, and he bought a Krishna book, gave us $8. That was enough to buy enough gas to get to the next city. You know, it's like that. So, when you have that, there's an interesting thing about faith, and maybe you've experienced this. When you have that faith, Krishna comes to prove your faith. When you lack that faith, Krishna disappears to prove your lack of faith. Have you had that experience? And then when you lack faith, Krishna proves your lack of faith, and then you say, see, I told you, you know, Krishna wouldn't help me. Yeah, he wouldn't help you because you believed he wouldn't help you. So because you believed that, he was just fulfilling your desire, to not believe. So when you have that faith, Krishna will take care of me. He will. Now, you may think he's not taking care of you because he's not taking care of you according to your terms, the way you want to be taken care of. But we shouldn't think like that. I've had so many strange things happen to me. And I'm always wondering, Krishna, why are you doing this? But you always figure out later why. You don't always know when it's happening. But you always figure out there was something there. Right? Something good came of it. Some of you know I was involved in a court case. So it's been a big hassle, but I got to go to Vrindavan. I got to spend 3 days in Vrindavan. So I wouldn't have gone to Vrindavan before. So, you know, side benefits. And I got some medicine in Vrindavan, and now I feel like I'm 17 years old. Maybe 21. And, you know, you never know. It's a very delicious medicine. It's made from cow dung. So if you like cow dung, if you like to drink cow dung, you'll like the medicine. And it has cow urine also. It's very delicious. And milk and ghee and yogurt. So if you have that faith, then you won't have to think. Krishna will reveal, Prabhupada will reveal, and you'll be able to take it step by step and understand this is what he wants from me. Like in your situation. Maybe he wants you to live in Radhakund or Govardhan. Maybe. Maybe you want to, and he's fulfilling your desire to live there. I would always imagine, like, if you have like kind of a normal death, where, the last week or 2 or 3 or 4 or a month or 2, you can't do much anymore. All you can do is hear and chant, right? And people come into your room, they read to you, and then you do kirtan. I'd imagine that'd probably be the highlight of my life. Just hearing and chanting all day, all night. You'd be totally transcendental, isn't it? You're just hearing Bhagavatam 24/7. I mean, that would be amazing. But now we're busy. We have so many things to do, and emails to answer, and WhatsApp messages, and Facebook. It's crazy busy, and this project and that, and this service and that, and then you finally, at the end, you just lay down in here. Everybody's crying. Oh, you're gonna die. This is the best time I've ever had in my life. You're hearing the Leelas and say, if I'm going to die and go to these Leelas, yeah, I'm ready to die immediately. Get me out of here. So we have that faith. Dedicate yourself to Krishna, and he'll guide you. He'll arrange things. And don't worry, it'll all work out. Have that faith. I think the dangerous thing is not to have that faith. Because, as I said, Krishna reciprocates with the lack of faith. I've seen that so many times. You lack faith, and then Krishna says, okay, do it yourself. You don't think I'll do it for you? All right, go ahead. See how well you can do it. You don't need me. Okay. And then we have to do it ourselves. It's what I call the Draupadi method. I joke a lot with my wife, because in our life, we've been married 26 years. In our life, there are so many things we didn't have together. It's like we didn't have the facility, or we didn't have the experience, or we didn't have the intelligence. And Krishna would always make things happen for us. The last moment, we didn't plan this or that, and then somebody would come and say, oh, I just had to leave my apartment, you can take, We just didn't plan well a lot of times. And he always, it's just funny, our lives are we're kind of helpless. And he would just always do things. And it's still like that. Sometimes we don't know how to do things, and somebody just shows up, oh, I'll help you do it. So we have that kind of faith. So he rescues us. He often rescues us in difficult situations.
So planning is not too big.
What?
Planning is not too small.
Yeah. Well, plan with faith at least. Planning is good, but plan but depend on Krishna. Both. Especially for preaching, obviously you have to plan. But, Prabhupada did set the example, coming to America with no money. Somebody said that was the taxi money. And someone else said he couldn't cash that money. So either it was the taxi money or it was rupees that couldn't be cashed. Basically, he came to America with nothing. So by the time he was in Butler, Pennsylvania, he had nothing. So example, right? Other question? Yes.
Where can I find this lavish retreat?
Where can you find them?
Yeah.
That I'm reading now?
Yes.
On the handouts to the retreat.
For the whole one.
If you're not coming to the retreat, you can still sign up. We need to know how many people are coming so we know how much prasadam and to order and how many chairs and how many books. So it's going to start next Saturday, I believe. Is that right? Next Saturday?
Sunday.
It's Sunday? Sanya Rupa's here?
No.
So who can they sign up with?
sometimes AIDS.
What?
AIDS will start.
So, yeah, but we
They
need.
cannot sign up with me now if she's not here.
Yeah. So DT back there, if you just give her your email if you want to sign up, she'll send you the information. It's going to be amazing, and it's going to be scary. I just today came up with about 40 questions that if I don't tie you to the chair, you're going to want to run away because they're so hard to answer. It's all about being honest with yourself. They're really good questions, like I think extremely transformational questions. Otherwise, if you bribe me, I might give them to you. Any other questions?
Getting back to the topic of duplicity, or the opposite of it being straightforward and honest. Obviously, so I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. That doesn't mean we walk around telling everyone about
How bad we are?
Yeah, and our sinful inclinations. It just means that we become humble. We don't chase after a certain position, or we don't feel qualified for a position. We know where we're at, and we live in such a way.
We don't try to broadcast something we're not, and we don't try to defend ourselves when some mistake is pointed out. We're not pretending to be better than we are. We don't need people to think we're better than we are. One of the questions in this is that, has anyone ever thought of you better than you are? Like they look at you and they say, you know, they're talking to you in a way like they think you're something you're not, and you never said anything. You just let them do that. You went along with it. Yeah, so that would be an example. Okay. I need for people to think of me in a way, a certain way, but I'm not that way. As we were saying in the Kirtan Academy, it takes quite a bit of energy to pretend to be somebody you're not. You know what they say about liars? The problem with lying is you have to remember all your lies. Because if it's true, you don't have to remember it. But if you lie, you ever dealt with a liar? Sometimes they say contradictory things because they forgot what they said. So there's a problem with being pretentious. It takes energy to pretend. And if you don't have to pretend, then you save that energy. And you can use that energy for being real. That's the idea. And life is easier. You can make a t-shirt with this one. Life is easier when you're humble. It really is. You might say, it's hard to be humble. Okay, it is. But it's easier when you are. Maybe hard to be humble, but when you get there, life's easier. You agree? Because then you don't have to pretend. Okay, now the last thing I want to say, and devotees have mentioned this, you probably thought of this. It's like, when you're in the society of devotees, our goal is pure devotional service. So there's kind of like a subtle pressure to like kind of look like a pure devotee. Because that's the goal. So just be careful. I think the pressure should really be is to find where you're at and engage accordingly and deal with where you're at and not pretend to be where you're not at and to have to show people that you're better. Because then it creates, if we all do that, it creates a very fake society and a fake culture of people not being real. and people being afraid to express what their challenges are, because out of a fear that they'll be judged as not being a pure devotee. And so we don't want to create a society like that. That's very unhealthy. Of course, the paradox is, if you were a pure devotee, you would be real. So we're trying to fake being a pure devotee by not being real. That doesn't work, because a pure devotee is real, right? So a pure devotee wouldn't be hiding. But we think we should hide it, so it's a paradox. But I can't answer your question. You'll have to walk with me to the temple. Well, okay, I can answer, because it doesn't start till 7:15. Yes?
Sometimes we hear, I heard someone preaching that, yes, you have your anarthas, you acknowledge your conditioning, but that doesn't mean that you're just going to engage it forever. At some point, you need to give it up.
Yeah.
So what are you waiting for? You need to give it up. But that's sort of a pressure. You feel that?
Well, you need to give it up. Yeah, what are you waiting for? But if it were that easy to give up, we'd all already have given it up. Right? So it's not always like, what are you waiting for? It just means we should be working on it. Yeah. Like, if you're not working on it, yeah, it's a problem. If you haven't given it up, that's not a problem if you're working on it, because ultimately, by Krishna's mercy, you'll give it up. I mean, some things obviously you can give up more easily than others. But I would say the giving up would be, don't let it affect you. Do something to counteract it. So that's real. That's being real. You've acknowledged it and you're working on it. And what more can you do? Do your best. Work on it. Then you're good. The problem is either not to acknowledge it or to acknowledge it and not work on it. That's the problem. Right? Can't work on it if you don't acknowledge it. And if you acknowledge it and don't work on it, then nothing happens. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's okay to be fallen. It's just not okay to stay fallen. So it's okay to be who you are. It's okay to be fallen as long as you're working on it. As long as you recognize it, admit it, and work on it, then it's fine. That's all you can expect. But to be fallen and fake you're not fallen, to deny to your own self what your problems are and not work on them, that is not what we're all about. And to pretend you're someone you're not so you can get some honor from others, that's not why Prabhupada created ISKCON. We don't want to create that kind of culture. I may not be Krishna conscious, but if I put on my tilak properly and tie my dhoti right, people will think I am. That's like, and walk in a certain way, look in a certain way, hold my beads in a certain way. That's not what it's all about. It's about being real. And then working on it. So, the good news is, it's not a problem to be fallen. The good news is, that's how we came. So we don't really have a choice. The choice, it's just how we are. So, but then you have the choice to work on it. So that's where the problem comes, when you don't work on it. Right? Does that make sense? So turn to the person next to you and say, Prabhu, I love you with all your faults. That's it. And you tell everybody at home. Hare Krishna.